Good evening. Let's start the meeting. Joint Community Development Legislation Meeting. Board of Alders Notice, New Haven. The Joint Community Development Legislation Committee of the Board of Alders will meet in person on Tuesday, July 2nd at 7 p.m. in the Board of Alders chambers located at 165 Church Street, second floor, New Haven, to hear and act on the following items. OR-2024-0016, zoning ordinance text amendment and zoning ordinance map amendment approving a petition by Chapel Haven Sheffield Center, Inc. for a change of zone from RM2 high middle density residential to establish a planned development district on approximately 3.03 acres of land known as 1040 Whaley Avenue, map 389, block 1139, parcel 0130034 Emerson Street, map 405, block 1138, parcel 03400, and 38 Emerson Street, map 405/block 1138/parcel 03300. Per order, Honorable Carmen Rodriguez, co-chair, and Honorable Richard Furlow, co-chair. Attest, Honorable Michael Smart, City Town Clerk. These items are on file and available in the Office of City Clerk located at 200 Orange Street, Room 202, New Haven, Connecticut, 06510. For accessibility-related accommodations, please call 203-946-7151 or 203-946-8582. Public comment/testimony may be submitted via email to publictestimony@newhavenct.gov before 2 p.m. on the day of the meeting. This meeting may be viewed on the New Haven Board of Alders YouTube page. At this time, from my right, I'd like my colleagues to introduce themselves.
Frank Redenti, Community Development Committee, Ward 15, Fairhaven.
Sal Piccolo, Ward 18, CD.
Carmen Rodriguez, Ward 6.
Richard Furlow.
Community Development.
Richard Furlow, Vice Chair Legislation, Ward 27.
Adam Marchand, Ward 25, Legislation Committee.
Brian Wingate, Ward 29, Community Development, Beaver Hills.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to ask the presenters to come forward so we can begin. And we ask that all those presenting this evening, we need your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Good evening, Sarah Sharp, 135 Broad Street in Milford. I'm here today on behalf of Chapel Haven Schleifer Center, Inc., my client. We have Michael Storrs here on behalf of the applicant as well, although I'll do the primary presentation and we have the whole team available for questions as needed. So, Michael, you can introduce yourself.
I'm Michael Storrs, President for Chapel Haven Schleifer Center. Nice to meet you.
And Patricia.
Madam Chair, we just need a business or home address.
Business address is 1040 Whaley Avenue, New Haven, Connecticut.
And for the city, Patricia King, Corporation Counsel, 32 Vista Terrace in New Haven.
Thank you.
I'm just going to pull up the presentation for you guys. Is picking up all right? You guys can hear me okay? Oh, thank you.
Wow.
Thank you. Appreciate it. So we're here tonight with a PDD application on behalf of Chapel Haven. Just to briefly orient you to the site, the first slide are these photographs of the current buildings at the campus from the most recent redevelopment project that was approved back in 2017. I wanted to highlight those as you'll see in some of the perspective renderings of what the future project could be, that we're continuing this high level of design that we established from the previous project. And just to briefly orient you, this 2017 image, it depicts what was the original site, and this was the future vision back in 2017. When we got the past approvals, it was for the expansion of the Welcome Center, which is this central building here, the Reach building, which is the residential education at Chapel Haven, that's in pink, and the Sale Schleifer Adult Independent Living building in blue. This reddish one at the Whaley Avenue frontage was always envisioned, but we did not, get that going at the first phase, and that's what we're here to talk to you about tonight. That's part of the PDD, is to enable us to take that next step and expand the programs, the residential offerings that we have for our community. And for those of you that don't know, and any members of the public listening, Chapel Haven is an amazing organization that has been providing education and residential services to adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities for a very long time, and they've been at their campus at the corner of Whaley Avenue and Emerson Street since 1976. So just, why the PDD in this instance? All of the existing uses are education and institutional uses that were approved as permitted as of right in the RM2 underlying zone. Part of what we're doing here is, allowing the Whaley Avenue building to exist the way that we envision it and to get the programming that we need to. There are some adjustments to the bulk requirements that are necessary. We discussed a number of alternatives with city staff. We could have gone and gotten a bunch of variances. We could have, sought to establish a new zone or amended the regulations of the underlying RM2 zone. But through those discussions, was really encouraged, and the preferred path was to do the PDD for this campus so that we could really define what we see as a really integrated neighborhood campus and really complete the vision that we started in 2017. So for the most part, in terms of the deviations that we're proposing from the underlying bulk standards, we try to keep as close to the RM2 zone as possible. There were some of the existing standards weren't well suited. For example, some parking standards that would have required more parking than our use needs, which is unique, and setback adjustments. I don't want to go through those in great detail because they were outlined very specifically in the staff report that City Plan considered and that was reviewed and approved favorably in the City Plan Commission hearing. I'm happy to go over those and any questions that you have. This was really the most comprehensive approach. Another alternative we discussed was to rezone this area from RM2 to BA, because we do have a nearby BA zone. But in the discussions with staff, the idea was that that would perhaps be a little too expansive. BA zone has much more lenient bulk standards than what we are proposing. So this was, gets what we need to do with making sure it fits within the neighborhood and is still consistent with the context of the residential campus that we've had for so many years. So this next slide just identifies the parcels that are the subject of the PDD. It's the entirety of the campus at Whaley Avenue, which is 1040 Whaley Avenue, the main campus as Site A. And then across the street is the Site B, which is at 3438 Emerson Street. The idea being that we can establish an off-site parking lot there to make up for some of the parking that will be lost when we build this beautiful new building along Whaley Avenue. As you can see here, there's a parking lot there, so we needed to account for that parking somewhere. This is just a concept colorized rendering of what we see as the final vision of our campus. What we're calling the community building is all along the Whaley Avenue frontage. We complete the campus with continuation of the pedestrian pathways and pedestrian landscaping that we started with the 2017 redevelopment, and create at the corner of Whaley and Emerson this new pedestrian entrance that's really welcoming and creates a nice streetscape at the corner there. That's also where there will be an entrance to a proposed cafe that our students can work at and get some real world experience interacting with members of the public and working at a cafe like they would anywhere else. So with that, I want to show you some of the fun, stuff. Here's the representational renderings. Oh, this is along the Whaley Avenue frontage, and you can see at the corner there, the pergola patio, that's the entrance to the cafe. And going a little further, this is that space at the corner there, the new pedestrian entrance with the big pathways. Internal to the site, there'll be seating areas, and the intention is to maintain what we've always had as this neighborhood campus, an open campus that we really try to interact with members of the community. As you may know, a lot of our former students end up living right in the same neighborhood, and we love that about the whole organization. That's why we love where we are in the Westville neighborhood. So we don't want to lose that character. And I think that the new pedestrian entrance here is more intentional than what we have today, and it really is an attractive addition to the streetscape. So this is one final rendering showing the courtyard that's completed. This is the back side of that community building, and creates this internal campus for the additional recreational opportunities and just gathering spaces with the landscape pedestrian areas internal there. And this was just highlighting from the staff report that was prepared for City Plan Commission that we complied with all criteria for the PDD regulations and the zoning ordinance, that we are consistent with the comprehensive plan, and we satisfy all criteria for amending zoning regulations and PDD map. The one thing I do want to highlight as well is that City Plan staff found that we comply with the state criteria for floating zones. That's statute 8-2M. And a question came up during the public hearing portion that we provide additional information to reconcile the language of 8-2M and this PDD in a residential zone. So the memo that you may have seen floating around just before we started here is what we prepared, and apologies for the late notice, but we have been working with staff, with Corporation Counsel, to get you the information that you needed and make sure so everything is buttoned up for this hearing. The primary audience was really a legal audience for Corporation Counsel. We did include an executive summary at the very top to highlight the key findings here, which is that while we have proposed a use term that is the independent living community as the use that is at Chapel Haven, the intention there is that we've created a holistic term that encompasses Chapel Haven's existing education and residential uses. As explained, in very much detail in the memo, we're not adding anything new or anything beyond what would be allowed at a college, secondary, or university school that's allowed in an RM2 zone. And just to make that even clearer, we made a very minor revision to the language of the use to make it clear that all of the bullet point items are accessory and subordinate to the primary education and supportive housing use, so that it really makes it clear that this is not any different than what would be permitted under the RM2 zone uses. We are not proposing a new or less restrictive use than is allowed in the underlying residential zone. And certainly we are not proposing any expansion of a pre-existing non-conforming use, because this is a conforming use that's permitted as of right in the current zone. So with that, I'll just show you the slight revisions to the language that we've proposed as attachment. This is the red line is attachment 1, and the clean copy is 2. But as you'll see, instead of having the accessory uses at the end, there was a concern raised by Corporation Counsel's office that perhaps that could be read as saying there are accessory uses to all of those bullet point uses. And so we moved it to the top, because the intention is we are listing uses that are typically seen within a university or secondary school. And as one specific example, we looked at, apologies. Sorry, the Wilbur Cross School and their culinary program, they have, for example, a cafe that members of the public can order food and purchase food from their students. And that's the same type of program that we're offering here with a cafe or other services that are, tied to the educational program. And that's where the students work and allow them to interact with members of the public. And so with that, if you have anything to add.
I don't have lengthy remarks. I think that Attorney Sharp did an excellent job of her presentation. I think the important thing to keep in mind here is that we need to focus on the use and not the nomenclature that necessarily it doesn't define a new use. It is a better description of the educational and residential use that Chapel Haven is already engaged in. And I think that really needs to be the focus here. It's an educational program, residential program, and many of the ancillary services that are listed on Exhibit C are really the goals of the program to teach life skills, to allow the residents there to work and get practical experience, and also to have the living situation which is really similar to multifamily housing that certainly is allowed in the zone. So I think that's the important focus here, and we honed in on that after the issue came up, and I think that's the appropriate way to look at it. And we're very supportive of this application.
Just thank you for your consideration, and just want to say just how wonderful the Westville community has been to the Chapel Haven Schleifer Center students and graduates.
Thank you. Any questions from colleagues? Rashawn.
Thank you very much, Madam Co-Chair. I want to thank you for your presentation. I want to thank you for the memo addressing the legal questions that came up at the City Plan Commission. I read the memo, which I read as, I guess we're a legal audience too, since we're lawmakers.
You're getting there.
And so I understood it, and I'm satisfied by it. So I thank you for that bit of due diligence in the less than a week since our commission meeting. This proposed rezoning, the PDD, would allow for an intensification of the development of the campus, right? Bigger buildings, potentially more people. And so I see that the reports from your engineers say there'll be no traffic, not sufficiently bad traffic impacts. But pardon the pun, but I think we got to kick the tires on that a little bit. It wasn't something that we covered very much. And so I see an engineer in the audience who I've seen at many commission meetings before. And if it is okay with our co-chairs, I think it would be appropriate to have the engineer come and talk more about the traffic study. Because for people who live in the area, having a more intensely developed campus, what effect will that have on Fountain Street and Whaley Avenue and Emerson and all the rest of the streets that are important in the neighborhood?
You have an issue, Madam Chair?
No, not at all. You can name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Chris Granatini. I'm a professional engineer licensed in the state of Connecticut with Ty and Bond, located at 213 Court Street in Middletown, Connecticut. So, did you have a specific question, or you just wanted me to walk through
Walk us through it, if you
traffic
would,
assessment
sir.
that we
Thank
did?
you.
Sure, thank you. So Ty and Bond has been involved with the Chapel Haven site, and we provided traffic services during the initial redevelopment back in 2017. In support of this application. We prepared the traffic statement, which was submitted to the city, where we looked at existing conditions, we looked at the roadways that are there, we looked at the proposed uses, the density, the development, and so it's a bit of a unique type of facility where you've got a school, but it's not like a school bus is coming every day in that kind of school. It's a school where people live. And so trying to kind of cater the type of uses with a traffic generation model that we think is appropriate. We selected an assisted living type of facility, which we think is appropriate for the way that this facility operates. But then on top of that, looking at the cafe and how that could also be somewhat of an attraction for residents in the neighborhood. We've, conducted and applied a land use code to that use on the site. Let me see. So we assume that that part of the development would operate like a fast casual restaurant where people would come in and order and sit down and eat. And so in looking at the redevelopment use and the change in beds, which nets out 37 additional beds. So it's the 52 minus the ones that are there. Plus, so the assisted living piece of the development gives us 7 peak hour trips in the weekday morning and 9 trips in the weekday afternoon. And then the just over 2,400 square foot cafe generates 14 trips in the weekday morning and 30 trips in the weekday afternoon. And so we're dealing with what is considered a very low volume of traffic that could be generated by this site. And so we really view that like less than 50 total trips in a peak hour as fairly negligible relative to the background traffic network. There's a traffic signal at Emerson and Whaley that will serve the site. And so you've got 2 state routes immediately adjacent to the site. And so we think that because of the low trip generation that will be created by the additional development, that the site will have a negligible impact on traffic operations in the area.
Thank you.
If I can just add as well, even though it is a substantial building and it's going to house a lot of programs that make our existing programs better, as Chris mentioned, that it's only a net increase in 37 residents, and the staff support, recreation space, assembly hall where we can host graduations that we don't have now. Those are big volume spaces, but they don't generate really additional traffic. So I just wanted to add that as well related to the floor plan.
Alderman Shan still has the floor.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Kochek. Just as a follow-up, I appreciate your efforts to try to find a similar use facility where you could try to anticipate what the traffic impacts would be and when the comings and goings would be. Very close to this campus is Morrow Sheridan School, which has busy times, pick up and drop off. And so in your study, did you think about the interaction of the pick up and drop off traffic, the buses queuing up, with when the comings and goings would anticipate it to be for this campus?
So I think in general, when we're looking at sites that generate like that below 50 trips in an hour, and really it was only like 8 or 9 trips associated with the school, the assisted living component of it. And then we do think that the cafe and the land use code that we used is probably highly conservative relative to what this cafe is intended to be. We view the cafe as a location where, like we said, the students and the students at the school will work there. Residents in the neighborhood could walk to the cafe and eat there. This is more of a kind of a pure traffic assessment of people like driving to a cafe to go and eat at the cafe. And this is a little bit different. So we think we've taken a very conservative approach relative to what the traffic generation will really be at this with the additional development. And so for those reasons, we didn't view this as requiring kind of more extensive traffic analysis to determine like what the impacts were, because it is a fairly low generator, and we wouldn't really see a lot of change in the operations because of it.
So in other words, if I were to repeat back what I think you've said, is that you anticipate the traffic to be low enough that it wouldn't really make a difference in terms of when the school is picking up or dropping off. And also, it made it so you felt it wasn't necessary. Professionally, your assessment is that it wasn't necessary to do like a intersection by intersection
Correct.
grading of the functioning of those signalized intersections, which we got, for example, when we were doing the PDD for the hospital work over at St. Raphael's campus. I mean, oftentimes we get huge reports with intersection analysis, and in your professional opinion, that kind of exhaustive analysis is not called for here.
Yeah, so like we like to use like that 50 trips as a threshold. You'll even see some publications that will tell you if you're not generating like 100 new trips through an intersection, you don't really need to analyze it because you have the ebbs and flows of daily traffic. And so when we're talking about, less than 10 trips associated with the school, and then a conservative assessment of the cafe, less than 30 trips for what is not what this will be, but we had to pick something that was as close to what we think it could be, to be kind of without us like just creating something on our own that would require some other sort of analysis. So we went a more conservative approach that it doesn't warrant looking at that intersection by intersection, assessment, because you start to lose the traffic very quickly, and it just becomes part of the kind of background of the daily flows of traffic on the network. So under 50, we're not typically doing detailed operational analysis to.
Understood. Thank you for responding to my questions. Thank you. Co-Chair.
Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Chair. Madam Chair, thank you for your presentation as well. What time does the CAF open and what time does the CAF close?
That we have not gotten to that level of detail yet, so I don't know that we have an answer. Maybe Michael, do you have any vision?
No, I think, we can obviously be very flexible, with the hours and what the committee here feels is appropriate or not. Yeah, it's a training program.
No, I get it. I mean, I think it's important, I like to eat.
I can tell you our current cafe is usually it's around 8:30 to 2.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
No further questions? No, thank you. Any other colleagues?
Well, since we're talking about traffic on a state road, let me just ask, how many clients or students actually drive?
Very few. Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're quite welcome. So this campus has been, it was a smaller campus quite a while back.
Prior to the redevelopment in 2017, I think Michael could probably talk about the net change, but there were so many different buildings at that point. There was still a substantial number of students. We just, improved all of the facilities.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Any questions from the colleagues? Okay.
Well, Madam Chair, there's no further questions from colleagues, then we should go to the public portion.
Absolutely. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No.
Is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on this item? For a second time, is there anyone from the public wishing to testify on this item? For a third time, anyone from the public wishing to testify?
I move we close the public portion.
Second.
The item has been moved and seconded. We close the public portion. Thank you. Oh, My apologies. All in favor?
Aye.
Any abstentions? The public portion has been closed. Thank you.
Madam Chair, we need to discharge this. And so, we don't have quorum tonight of a committee, and so, we need to have this discharged for the full board, for its consideration in our next meeting.
So I will ask colleagues,
Well, we just need to, we need a motion to adjourn.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
the item has been moved in second. We are adjourned.
No.
My apologies. Rushing through. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? We are adjourned.